stand. Father, may you not glorify. In Jesus' name, I count it a great privilege to be with you on this important program. Out there, it's a moment we have with the seminary community whereby we live in the Adulam cave. And the Lord has put it in our heart to share it, to share the same thing with the sheep of God out there who might be passing through similar occasions of trouble, similar of body, similar situation of hardship as David did. Go ahead, permit me to read from 1 Samuel chapter 22, verse 1. David therefore departed from there, the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. So I moved too far about this. I like to tell you what the cave of Adullam meant, especially where the cave was located. You can see that I've read it from the Holy Writ, the Holy Scripture showcases that for the fact that I read it from 1 Samuel chapter 22 and verse 1. It is an indication that was referring to the people in ancient Israel. So, where was Adullam? Adullam was a portion of the tribe of Judah, as we have it in Genesis chapter 38, verse 1, Genesis chapter 12, verse Joshua chapter 15, verse 35. There was a cave in Adullam where, in fact, the cave was so magnificent that it would house people. And it was here that they ran in the moment of trouble. Now you ask me, dear listeners, what made David to run to this portion of the place we are considering at this time? The very reason why David ran there was to avoid the invasion, the dreadful attack launched against him by the defunct King Saul, defunct because God had rejected him as king over Israel at that time. He saw David carrying glory. He saw David's great plan of God for his life. And the defunct King Saul was looking for every means to make sure that David's life was terminated. And so, among those places that David ran in chapter 21, in the closing portion of verse 21, of that chapter, to Achish, who was a king in Gath, one of the cities in ancient Philistine. But when that the people in Gath were also in support of the pursuit made against him by the defunct King Saul, he quickly left that place horribly. In fact, he behaved in a funny way in order to escape from Achish, the king of Gath. And immediately he got away from there in order to get safety from the invasion and the pursuit of the defunct King Saul. He found the cave of Adullam. He found the cave of Adullam. And so he ran there. And it is this that we are considering, dear listeners, at this time in this presentation. Cave of Adullam, what does it mean to those of us who are alive today, if we are able to derive what it meant to David during his time in ancient Israel? I have 3 points here to make, my dear listeners. And these 3 points, if you pay attention, will be of great benefit to you. The first thing is David carried glory in his life. Glory, he derived it from God's covenant with him. How do you enter into God's covenant in the days of David? You enter God's covenant as an Israelite by the blood of the lamb that was slain. Why the people were coming from Egypt, why they were coming from Egypt and they were going to cross to the other side, which was going to lead them to the land of Canaan. You remember, in those days, God household to prepare a lamb, 1 year old lamb. Anyone for whom this lamb was killed became redeemed. And so every Israelite became sanctified unto the Lord. But beside that, Israel also became people by covenant as a result of the covenant that God enacted with them while in Sinai area of their journey, while they were en route to. In Exodus chapter 19, verse 4 to 6, God told Moses to tell them, and I like to quote now, God told them, I've seen what I've done to the Egyptians, what I've done to Pharaoh on your behalf, and now I've borne you unto myself on eagle's wing. If therefore you will lift us, if therefore you will carry out my ordinances, you will be special people to me. David was one of the stock of people, although he was not present during Sinai experience we are talking about here, but his great parents, his great generation in the past, they belong there. So that's the first thing I want us to see there. One, David was a person who carried God's glory because he was God's special covenant person. Number, this point number one, leading us to point number two, indicates that if someone is a person who carries and is under God's covenant, that person has the responsibility to have spiritual sensitization, especially when the enemies are. Even in ancient Israel, the Israelites were always under the threat of the nations around them, because the nation they usually how God was fighting for Israel, how God was protecting Israel, how God was leading Israel, and God was going to lead Israel to this land. If we wouldn't forget in the JIV, the Balak experience was just one. And by this, what made Israel stay true, just as it helped David too, was the Israelites' sensitization was awakened. What also worked for David